What's up, everyone? Today we're going to talk about the headphone. This is the HEDD phone. Of course, this is a huge box that it comes in, and these are huge headphones. I'm just going to give my first impressions video on this today, and we'll do a full review sometime next week. But in the meantime, this is something that many of you guys actually already know about, and you guys are already actually placing orders on headphones.com. I'll leave a link to that, but then I'll also leave a link to the community section where you can see what everybody else is saying about this as well. Once again, thanks to headphones.com for making this video possible and lending me this unit so I can give my impressions and then do a full review of this in the coming week. But I've been using this now for the past day and a half, and I got to say, this kind of changes the game for headphones, especially high-end flagship headphones. For you guys who aren't aware, this is a brand new transducer technology going on here. So typically you have dynamic drivers, planar drivers, and then rarely electrostatic drivers for headphones, and they all have very distinct and different sound. This uses what's called the air motion transformer system. Out of all of them, it's probably closest to a planar, but instead of having a plane with a diaphragm, it uses folds. So I'll talk a little bit more about the transducer technology in the full review. These guys have been doing this kind of stuff in their speakers, and now they're doing it in headphones as well. And this is the first of its kind. Naturally, if you look at this is huge. And it weighs also about 700 grams. And I actually find that it doesn't wear on my neck as much. It doesn't crush my neck the same way that like the LCD4 does and the LCD2 closed. And there's this interesting little gap here so that most of the weight is actually on the sides of your head. And then a lot of it is also alleviated by the clamp going in. Now, I don't find the clamp force in this to be quite as tight as it is on the Rad Zero, for example. And I do find that the cushions here, they're huge. They take a lot of that clamp away. So overall, I actually wore this for the better part of a day yesterday, and while I did notice it, it wasn't as bad as some of those other ridiculously heavy headphones that I've worn in the past that I worry about recommending as a result of their weight. Whereas with this one, I don't worry quite so much. The one issue that I do have with the comfort is it's not for me actually, but when I use this, the yoke here, I have to extend it as far as it can go. And even that, it just barely fits my head. Just like this, right? If anybody has a head that's larger than mine, I worry that maybe the yokes won't extend quite far enough for you. Because for me, I would never want to go even less than this. So maybe that's something to pay attention to. They do have a little bit of swivel here for the cups. It's a kind of a cool little system here where on the housing part of the cup, it actually, I don't know if you can quite see this, but there's a little swivel mechanism there that allows it to move back and forth. So that seems like a fairly good design, and it's not too difficult to get this to fit right on your head. But for build quality, this doesn't feel quite as ridiculously premium as like a Focal Utopia, for example. It's just not on that level. But it is reasonably comfortable for a 700 gram headphone. That's what I'll say about it at the moment. For performance, yeah, the reason this changes everything is you get something here that reminds me of the technical performance of the LCD4 with the frequency response and tonality that's a lot closer to the Focal Utopia. Now, I'm not going to say that this is better than the LCD4 or even that it's exactly the same as the LCD4. I'd have to have them, one to one next to each other. But it's close enough where I have to question that. I have to ask myself if it's on the same level. I want to say from memory that the LCD4 may be just a hair better at detail retrieval than this, but it's so close. And this comes in at less than half the price. Now, for frequency response, the LCD4 is actually not particularly good. It's not very well balanced. And most people who use the LCD4 will either use the Audeze Reveal plugin or they'll use some sort of EQ to get it in line with where it should be. And with this, you don't have to do that. And again, it's partially because the tonality here emphasizes clarity the same way that the Focal Utopia does with the frequency response. So to describe that a little bit better, this is not super bass heavy. And actually, I find that the bass sits a little bit below the Harman target, the consumer curve. For those of you guys who are more into that, you may want to elevate the bass here with a little shelf there around 80 hertz to boost that up a little bit. But for me, I find that it's actually right where it should be. And then it follows the target curve reasonably closely, with just a little bit more focus, it's a little bit brighter than that Harman target. And I find that if you like the Focal Utopia, I think that you will really like this, because this has that same emphasis for clarity, for all the detail in the mix. Great for acoustic music, jazz music, anything with pianos in it. This is phenomenal. And then it also is a little bit better extended in the bass than the Focal Utopia. This actually extends, all the way down to 20 hertz, and there isn't really a roll off the same way there is with the Utopia. Now, it's not, again, because it's not elevated in the bass, it's not that same fun kind of like punchy quality to the bass, but the speed here is incredibly fast. It's incredibly tight. When you listen to tracks that have, for example, that sub bass frequency going on, like for example, Why So Serious, the Hans Zimmer track, you actually physically feel the air being moved. So this might not have the same excursive, slam quality of a dynamic driver, but this has probably the minimum distortion characteristics of a planar in the bass, and it's really, really tight as well. And then the shining quality of this, in my mind, is the stage is, I don't even know how to describe the stage. If you think about the HD800 and HD800S, that stage it's a very, almost thrown too far away from you, where you sit, a couple rows back. This doesn't have that same quality for some of the tones. Some of the tones actually can be quite close to you and a little bit intense, but then it can actually also have the full range of depth all the way, to the furthest end of where the HD800 ends as well. At least perceptually. And so that's a really unique quality. I'm used to a lot of headphones that they don't quite have that capability, but they paint a very evenly distributed picture across the front. And this does that too, but it does it with a lot more breadth of information forward. So for anybody looking for something with one of the most crazy sound stages and imaging capabilities, this is that headphone. Now, I say that this is kind of like a game changer. It's a game changer not because of what this is doing, technically, and the frequency response and everything. It's good across the board for everything. It's that it does what some of these $4,000 headphones can do at a price that's less than half. And so, this is the kind of thing that I think everybody is going to need to take a look at this and now kind of reevaluate what they need to do for headphones that are produced that cost more than this. And yeah, you'll have to wait for my full review to see what else I think about that. One thing I will say in this video is that this does require quite a bit of power. This uses the mini XLR connector here, and it comes with a single-ended. This one did anyways. But I actually have a cable with that's the same connectors with a 4-pin balanced termination. And so I've been using this on the Cayenne IHA6, and it did require high gain mode. So think again, the power requirements here are probably on par with that of the LCD4. And I like it. I like that we're finally producing headphones that, take a little bit of power and actually make use of all the amps that everybody's been collecting over the years. So if you guys want to know more about this, again, check out what everybody else is saying in the community section there, and stay tuned for my full review. I'll be doing a write-up for this as well. You can already see some of the preliminary measurements that I've taken. Again, not industry standard, but it's what we've got for now. But yeah, I'm super excited to tell you guys more about this. So in the coming week, stay tuned for that.